Pacific time. So thanks a million for joining us. And Kempton, thank you for arranging this. Really appreciate all of you being on this call. It is my great pleasure and distinct privilege to introduce you to Ervad Zerkxis Bhandara, who lives in Irvine, California, and is a member of our congregation at the ZAC LA, to which I belong. I've been here for 14 years in Southern California, and I've seen Zerkxis grow. And my God, before I even introduce you, I have to tell you that I love his prayers. If you listen to his prayers, you will feel like you are in heaven. Anyways, with that being said, Zerkxis was born and raised in California. He has been serving the local Zoroastrian community for the last 14 years, having completed his Nawar in 2006 and Maratab in 2007. Zerkxis has also pursued an education in the study of religion. He got a BA in 2018 from University of California, Santa Barbara, and is currently working on an MA in the same from CSU Long Beach. As part of his graduate studies, he has completed a course in Sanskrit and is currently studying Avesta under the auspices of NAMC. By the way, he received an NAMC scholarship to study Avesta with Dr. Ervad Karangia. He brought both these aspects to the table for completion of his project, in addition to his knowledge in religion and liturgies and Parsi customs. He has been extremely helpful to the local community. With that, Zerkxis, the floor is yours, Zerkxis.
Before we begin, there are two other speakers today, myself and Dr. Ali Makki, and we're just waiting for another team member, Mubed Shahzadi, to come. He usually starts off our sessions with a short prayer. I'm hoping he can join us. Maybe, Arda, if you'd like to do the introductions for Dr. Ali Makki and myself, we could wait for him to come.
Sincerely apologize, I don't have your bios. Could you please send those to me?
I'll send them to you right now.
Okay, I am at arda@cgp.com, and it's my fault. I sincerely apologize. My server in Chicago, something was wrong with it, and I had to reboot, and some things have not come. Armaity, are you from Toronto?
I think she's attempting to send the bios.
And that's okay. But is she from Toronto?
Have our bios on the Fazana website. So if just maybe to save time, that could also be an option for our audience to.
Kempton, do you have those in front of you?
I don't have in front of me, but I will look it up shortly and forward it to you, okay?
Yeah, that's okay, thank you. But Armaity is sending it.
Sorry, I sent it to Kempton because I couldn't get your email in time, but if you go to the Fazana glossary, this is kind of funny because now we're showing you how to do it anyways. 1 second, I just need to get out of it.
I was going to say, Armaity, when you were young, I'd come and stayed at your place.
You did?
Long time, you're very young. I'm quite old.
Well, then my parents who are here would be able to vouchsafe for that.
Yes.
Let me share my screen with you guys. Are you going to read off the, this is the about page of the glossary. So if you go to the glossary itself and you click on about Arda, you'll get us. Fazana.org/glossary. And then about us.
Zerkxis has sent something.
Yeah, I have sent.
Armaity Homavazir. Okay, I have it here with me.
Fantastic.
Okay.
I'll stop.
Okay, so sorry about that again, guys. Armaity Homavazir from Toronto, Canada. Armaity has been involved with the Zoroastrian community from a very young age. She has participated in, organized, and spoken at many congresses over the years. In 1996 and 1998, she was creator and co-director of Camp Pardis, a successful 6-week summer camp for Zoroastrian children in Toronto. At present, she is a religion class teacher in Toronto and involved with Faizana Religious Education Committee in the endeavor to create lessons plans for local teachers. Armaity is a special ed teacher working with students with dyslexia and or other language-based challenges. She has a passion for languages and has studied Gujarati, French, and Italian. She also has a background in linguistics and psychology. It is through her work with students challenged in literacy and her own growing awareness of English spelling and orthography that inspired this project. That's fantastic, Armaity. Really appreciate that. Now we have, I would like to introduce also Dr. Ali Makki. Dr. Makki has been an active member of the Zoroastrian community in the United States and has served in various capacities at the CZC, which is the California Zoroastrian Center. As a volunteer when he was a teenager and in official roles, including election committee for the Board of Trustees in 2014. He was the president of the Board of Directors in 2016 and the president of the Board of Trustees in 2019. He has also served as volunteer, advisor, and speaker in various Zoroastrian congresses and Zoroastrian associations in the United States, including CZS, IZA, ZAC, Zapanch, Zambi, and Zerkxis Assembly. He has been a contributing author to various Zoroastrian publications, including Parsiana, Faizana Journal, Makki Meher, etc. As a student attending the University of Pennsylvania, he co-founded the Penn Zoroastrian Society and studied Avesta, Pahlavi alongside his medical studies. Dr. Makki speaks Persian, German, and several other Indo-European languages and has proficiency in Zoroastrian, Dari, Gilaki, Mazandaran. I don't even know what that language is. Luri Kurdish. Dr. Makki translated the Parsi prayers to English and edited the English narrations on the audio CD Namaj, produced by the late Ferry Demeri. He also served on the advisory board formed by the Tehran Mawbits Council and Frabaha Publications in Iran for the republication of the late Mawbit, Azar Gosab's Persian edition of the Gathas. He's currently in private practice as a pain specialist, subspecializing in orthofacial pain and headache medicine at the HOAX Neuroscience Institute in Newport Beach, California, and is an associate professor of neurology at Loma Linda University School of Medicine. We have 3 people with fantastic resumes. We sincerely appreciate your willing to speak for us, and I sincerely apologize for my screw up earlier. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your grace and your introductions. We've just received word from Mobed Shahzadi that he won't be able to join us. So since we have so many Mobeds on the panel today, would one of you be willing to lead us before we begin?
My suggestion would be our own Zerkxis.
Sure. Okay, we could pray to Yatha Varios and one Hashem Mohu. Yatha Hum Vario Atharatush Ashauchi Thacha Wange Hush Dazdamaningo Kshauthananam Ange Hush Mastai Kshatrimcha Ahurai Aim Dregabyo Dadad Vastarem Yatha Hum Vario Atharatush Ashauchi Thacha Wange Hush Dazdamaningo Shodhananam Ange Hush Mazdai Kshatrimja Ahurai Aim Dregabyo Dadad Vastarem Hashem Vohu Vahishtemasti Ushtasti Ushtamai Yatashai Vahista Yeshem. Yes, done, Panabad. Thank you.
Thank you, Zerkxis, and thank you everyone for being here. It's been a busy day for all of us. Some of us were teaching religion classes this morning. Fazana had a Parsi Natak on, so we had a lot of competition. So we're glad that you could make it. And it's really wonderful to see so many Toronto peeps here today as well. So without further ado, we're going to get started. 1 second here. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Welcome to the Global Glossary. And I'm just going to give me 1 more second here to make us full screen. One second. There we go. Okay, here we are. Welcome to the Global Glossary Project. Dr. Ali Makki, Zerkxis, Bhandara, and I are going to be presenting to you how this project came into fruition and how it's going to be a useful tool, not only for ourselves, but for future generations. Zerkxis?
Sure. So this presentation is in 3 parts. Sometime last year, Tashan Mistry contacted me asking me to be a part of this project. And my first question was, why? Why are we doing this? Why would we do this? We have spellings. Everybody knows how to spell and sound out words. So we'll go through the why. And then we'll also go through the process of how we came to do this, what factors went into it. And then we'll end with what it is and what it looks like and how it can be accessed. Also, we should say that who it's meant for. So we'll cover all these topics in the slides.
So the question is always which spelling we use. And given that we have a multitude of different origins and language dialects, it's been a challenge. So which spelling? Do we spell Gahambar with an N-B-A-R or G-H-M-B-A-R? And these are questions that come up. And we mainly are targeting our audience in the English speaking world, since we're going to have variants in other Roman alphabets of different languages, such as English. Next slide. One of my favorites to discuss is always Nowruz. And interestingly, just to give you a quick interesting tidbit, a few years ago, there was a Hollywood movie where this student, young girl, or boy actually, is being asked to spell Nowruz in a spelling bee. And unfortunately, this poor lad fails and loses the competition because he picked one of his known spellings, and it happened to be an American child. So this brings us to the question, how do we evaluate pupils in classes? How do we use our spellings in our publications? And what is actually appropriate? So next slide. So countries that celebrate, and so some of those of you who can read the word in Persian there, I put Nowruz. I wanted to bring your attention that Nowruz is celebrated in many countries, all the I would say the remainder of or former greater Persian Empire, wherever it went, it took Nowruz with it. And to this day, regardless of religion, religious background, many people celebrate Nowruz as a cultural heritage celebration. So as you see on this map, we have various spellings, and none of which are incorrect based on the dialect, the language spoken in those regions. But when it comes to English, we need to find a way to better represent it for our children. Next slide.
So why bother with a glossary? As Zerkxis mentioned earlier, this project came about when I was working with the Religious Education Committee with Fizana about almost a year ago now, and we were looking through lesson plans that are going to be created for general use for everybody and being posted on a website. And I started to notice that not only amongst teachers do we spell things differently, but sometimes even within the same document. And so it became clear that we had to address this because we didn't want our children struggling with how to spell something and reading it 2, 3, 4 different ways along their religious education journey. So what we have to remember when we're talking about spelling is that English spelling, along with every other language, has evolved over time. Countries and languages go through many different changes. It might be war, it might be other countries taking over, as in the case with English. And then again, in pronunciation, people move away from the diaspora, as well as the fact that we've got different things happening linguistically. So how do we even begin to manage spelling? I hope you guys are awake because I'm going to be calling on some of you to volunteer for me. Mehbad from Toronto, can you please read these 2 words to us? Just unmute, Mehbad.
Yep.
Go
So
ahead.
I would pronounce the first word as tomato.
And the
Tomato. And the second way I would pronounce it as tomato.
Thank you, Mehbad. And for those of you who've seen this presentation before, we can see that adults speaking English have no prompts needed to know that we can have 2 pronunciations for the same word. We haven't spelt it any differently, but Mehbad instinctively knew that it's not said the same way, depending on where you're from. Another case and example, Meher Amalsad, can you please tell us how you would say these 2? Maybe we'll get Temten. Arda, can you jump in?
I can, I'll try.
Sorry, potato. Sorry, I was a little late,
No, go ahead.
but let me give it a try. Potato, potato.
Great. See, again, no prompt needed. Very straightforward. Arda, can you do this one for us, please?
Oh my God, this is aunt, aunt.
Good. So in Britain, we'd say aunt, and in North America, we say aunt. So again, the spelling has not changed. I want you to keep this in mind because this is really key to what we're doing with the glossary. But the pronunciation, depending on where you're from, definitely does change. We don't want to mistake concepts in language, which is why we have different spellings as much as possible. Keep that in mind as well. So when we're looking at English spelling, we want to go a little bit deeper. Arda, you get your chance now. Can you read these words for us, please?
Knife, knock, knee.
Good. And if we were living in England 1500 years ago, we may have said knife, knock, and knee, and that was totally normal. So again, you see, we've got elements from history also governing our spelling. We acknowledge the KN because it was a unit a long time ago, and in Germany it still is, and yet in English today it's still not, but the historical connection remains. So I'm going to get one more volunteer to read this one for us. Barrows, Clubwalla, will you jump in, please?
Sign.
Thank you. Barrows, stay with us. Why do we not hear the G in sign? You don't need to answer that.
It's just the traditional way it's been pronounced. In the English language, there are a lot of silent alphabets.
There are, but they actually are, they have meaning. So we don't just toss letters in there for no reason. Barrows, stay with us. I want you to read the next few for me. Just give me a second here. Okay, can you read these words for us, please?
Insignificant.
Keep going.
Significant.
Oh, for some reason my slides are sticking. Oh, there we go.
Signature.
Keep going.
Significant and sign.
Keep going.
Insignia. And here we say the G.
Oh my goodness, I don't know why my sides are acting up, but we get the idea that in all the other words that you just said, you heard the G that we don't hear in sign. And that's because all of these words are related to each other in terms of meaning, but we don't say all of the letters in them every time. So you can see that the G needs to be there. Otherwise it would lose its connection with all the other words that are related to it in meaning. So we see that spelling is not arbitrary at all, and spelling is not solely based on pronunciation. In school, we're always taught you have to sound it out, but spelling goes deeper than that, and that's what we're trying to show you here. Ali's going to take over from here.
Well, thank you so much, Armaity, for the beautiful examples. It sets the stage for my part here. So again, going back to the question, which spelling is it? We have to think about many factors. Pronunciation and regional variations is one. Alphabets that are used in different regions and different periods in history do play a role. As you see on this slide, our heritage, our Zoroastrian and Iranian heritage has gone through many changes. On the top left, you see the Achaemenid Old Persian cuneiform, which was one of the earliest or first alphabetical systems used for Iranian languages. Next to that, on the right side, you see Aramaic, which is actually was used for Semitic languages, which we later, as Iranians, adopted because most of the subjects in the Persian Empire spoke Semitic languages. If you step down from that, you see the Pahlavi, which has 14 letters and then some variants. And out of that, we developed the Avestan alphabet, which is below or next to the Pahlavi. This actually saved us from a lot of mispronunciations. Some of us may know that the Pahlavi language or Pahlavi alphabet was a very, very, very difficult system, almost dreadful for present-day scholars because it has features that does not represent vowels, and you have to make assumptions and have heterograms representing the word. For example, if you want to say pedar, father, you would say Abba or write Abba because that's the root in the Aramaic, the Hebrew, and the current Arabic also. So we have these very, very difficult challenges that we have to go through to get to the present day. And then we have here the Gujarati to the lower left and the Perso-Arabic or the Persian Farsi alphabet, which presents its own challenges. So based on the country of origin, we also have variations. What we end up with is a series of changes, language transitions that bring different pronunciations. So when we get to our current place in the diaspora, we have adopted new languages, European languages in some cases, English, German, French. So we use those conventions to try to best present the terminology that we use in our religion or in our cultural settings. So the best way to do this is to find a way, a convention again, and an agreed upon system that we could spell our words and pronounce them however we do regionally. Next slide.
Okay, and this slide is quite self-explanatory, is that when we don't use a consistent system or consistent convention of spellings, people start to make up their own spellings. I should have used as an example all the birthday cards I've received and all the parvides I've received with my name spelled on it. Some people like to use an X, some people like to use a Z. My parents only spelled it one way. Some people have even put an H in my name, believe it or not. And So when you don't have a consistent way of spelling things, you have things like spenta with a C, which would make sense in some languages where the C makes a sound. Or you have Navjot, sometimes even spelled this way, or the first way, but without a T, without an E. So which is it? Kasti or Kashti? One's a kagaz ki kashti, a paper boat, and one is the sacred girdle we wear around our waist. But then again, you have the panthaki. We've taken it as the noun, panthaki, the head priest. But sometimes when it comes to names, like with my name, it's spelled with a Z, there are variations depending on how one's ancestors wanted to spell that. So we're not dealing with specific names per se, but more general terms. If we could have the next slide. So this is my favorite slide. Everybody just take a minute to read this, and you'll be able to read it, sound it out like we've all learned as children. The Global Glossary project. And I hope it's a little uncomfortable for everyone to read this way. So this makes sense when we sound it out, but it's technically incorrect. And this is what we have a lot. This is what we have going on with a lot of the terms we use and their spellings. So if we could have the next slide. And basically, if we don't take responsibility as people involved in the Zoroastrian community, people like Tashan and Armaity and Artemis and myself who are teachers of religious classes, if we don't take the right steps for the sake of our students, our children, then people come up with their own spellings. And we have this slide, Angira Menu. Technically, if you're following the Avestan convention, there would be no G, it would be a N with a tail for the Avestan but it doesn't make sense. And people can do this now with the advent of the internet and YouTube and Facebook, Instagram. People make up their own spellings when there isn't a standardized spelling for things. We don't know who this guy is, probably a layperson, probably not a scholar. And if you could see, they have about 1 million, more than 1 million views. Oh, and that's my birthday. But anyway, so this is stuff that happens when we don't have standard spellings. If we could have the next slide. Over to you, Ali.
Yes, so as Zerkxis mentioned, the situation presently with the advent of so many different platforms for social media, we will have different people decide on the spellings, and a historical example as to why many Europeans started to refer to Zarathustra as Zarathustra is when, during the Enlightenment period, Friedrich Nietzsche, a very famous German philosopher, and his famous book brought the name Zarathustra sort of to the forefront. And the reason for the pronunciation of S in Zarathustra, which is the most common way of spelling it in the academic world especially, is that two German scholars, one Bartholome and the other one, I believe Hopschmann, adopted these phonetic representations for Avestan and old Iranian languages in their scholarship. So the S with a little V on top, as you see on the right-hand side, represents the sound sh. So by people like Nietzsche and others studying about Zarathustra, they would start to spell S because S with a V on it was not a conventional way of writing it. So in the German language, Zarathustra became their proper and adopted way of spelling the name. And that's the reason, again, we cannot let others decide for us. We need to come up with our own conventions. And I've noticed in India, sometimes the letter J, the English J, is sounded out as Z or Z, and vice versa. Z is pronounced J. So we need to kind of put these together, pool this type of these variances, and again, come up with our own spellings. Next slide. So what can we use the spelling for? So this glossary is open to the public, all Zoroastrian scholars, anyone can use it, but we need to remember, it is where English is used. We're not dictating to Zoroastrians in Germany, in France. It is only to the English speakers. And that's why we want to make clear that for English-speaking countries, we are suggesting spellings. Again, it's a glossary, but we're not necessarily talking about the meaning of the words, but mostly the spelling. So these could be used in lesson plans, in writing handouts for children, in presentations and slides, anywhere that we use English in the context of Zoroastrianism, we could use this spelling convention. Next slide.
So how did we get started? About a year ago, I contacted Dr. Jenny Rose and spoke to her about this idea along with Dr. Jamshid Choksi. And immediately Dr. Jenny Rose sent me her 2 glossaries that she had used in her own publications. So that was what we used as the foundation to build this glossary on. In the meantime, I also contacted Dr. Dali Dastur with the Fazana Journal, and she and Roshan Rivetna had many years ago developed their own glossary for the journal. So you can see that every publication has their standard of spellings. And so we merged the 3 glossaries together, 2 from Dr. Jenny Rose, 1 from the Fazana Journal, and we then took it upon ourselves to go through almost 365 terms. There are actually more, but we took out the ones that we didn't think were relevant or would be used as much in terms of an educational context. But just because we're talking about teaching and education, don't think that it doesn't work for you. If you want to send an email to someone, or if you're writing up about your daughter's wedding that's coming up and you want non-Zoroastrians and Zoroastrians to know about the ceremony, we urge you to use the glossary. This is for all of us. And so back to how we got started, the team started to meet together last June, and we worked all through the summer going through every single letter of the alphabet in order to see how we could make the terms as simpler and as streamlined as possible. So our original core team was myself, Zerkxis, Ali, who you see here, Artemis Javanshir, who is with the Fazana Religious Education Committee, and Tashan Mistry, who is a religious education teacher in the Philadelphia area. And so we worked together along with several other people behind the scenes who helped with the editing and the web development to get the product that you see today. We also have, actually, I'll let Ali continue and then we can talk more later about the other things with the glossary.
Okay, so the important point to realize about this project is that this is a work in progress. It's a dynamic entity. It's going to be changing, and we're not acting as the Zoroastrian big brother here, trying to tell everyone how they must do things. It's an idea that we brought to the table to come up with the spellings that most represent the English language phonetics and would be most sensible to use. And again, we would like to have input from the community and all interested parties to try to contribute to this. And we also, if you go to the next slide, we have our review panel, and we will meet on a regular basis to try to come up and bring more reason and input into helping these spellings. Language is a living being. It actually will be changing every year, every month, based on new developments in culture, in art, in science. And the way our children speak today is not the way I spoke when I was a youngster. So we need to kind of keep up with that. But the spelling is something that we need to stay with and develop over time. And if, suppose for some reason, our dialect and pronunciation changes in North America in 300 years from now, we might have to review this again. So again, this is an open project, but we want to adopt ways to be able to gauge our performance and standardize our spellings in the English language. Next slide. So we will be happy to share this with all associations, all communities, and it's an honor for us to be able in this position to take this initiative. We can do this for anyone who's interested.
Okay, and this is it. This is the global glossary. You can access it wherever you have Wi-Fi. And members also put the link in the chat. And it's all alphabetical, of course. You can use, you can click on any of these alphabets. Armaity, if you could, click on one, for example, to give us an example, right? And this is just beautifully done. We have taken into consideration that there are some variations in spelling. And so you have it here, for example, with Jati, Jatav, Jativ, Rana. And then also, we've also given in parentheses what the original language is. So if it's something as an Old Avestan, Parsi, Gujarati, right? So all of these things are there. And also, of course, there's a key up top for Old Avestan, Avestan, Old Persian, Middle Persian, Persian, and Parsi, Gujarati. But this is, if you see, these definitions, they aren't terse. They're meant to be simple. They're meant to be easy to follow for all of us. Even as someone who's in academia, sometimes I just need something that's easy to read and easy to comprehend. And it's mainly meant also for children in our religious classes. This is something they can easily access from their phones, laptops, tablets, and they can understand it with ease.
So one of the ways that we wish to engage our students in the glossary is we've created a couple of activities, and I'm going to run through them fairly quickly to show you what is possible with this glossary. One of the ideas was to have a word for the day. And so this morning when we started religion classes, I had one of the students pick a letter and another one pick a number. We went to the letter M, we went to the number 3, and we found Magi. And we talked about who the Magi were. And so it's as easy as that to engage 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds with the glossary, and even younger if you wished, because you can do the reading for them. We have other ideas as well. I'm going to close the presentation for a second and show you the handouts that we've created for this activity. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt on the glossary. So let me just show you that. So we had the word for the day, and then, oh yeah, the other activity was find your name. Many of us are named after things that are in the Zoroastrian religion. We are the vocabulary, we're living it. And if you can't find your own name, then find a family member's name. So that's another way to get kids engaged in the activity. Another one that I created was around the gahambars. I hope you can see this. I'm going to read you just a little bit to give you a little taste of what's possible. So the teacher handout looks like this. The children's handout would not have the answers in it. And it goes like this. The words you seek, there are just 6. It's one way how Zerkxis get their kicks. Originally, they lasted for 5 full days. Today, we celebrate in many ways. These 6 festivals are a wonderful time to collect nature's blessings with food and wine. Sky, water, earth, plants, animals, and humans, we honor them with prayers and donations. The first of these is dedicated to the sky. Go to section M, and it's just after the top 10. Close to where you just found the first, you find the second that will quench your thirst. This water festival in the month of Tyr takes place in the summer with lots of cheer. So by now your student has gone to the letter M, they've had to search around, and they can't just pick any gahambar. They have to read the clue to match up with the definition to get them in the right order. Then they go on. Now the third festival celebrates planet Earth. Nature's bounty has so much worth. In the month of Ervad, we gather our crops, go to section P and see what term pops. The fourth festival celebrates plants. Nothing can be left to chance. Go to section A and look for Meher. If you start from the bottom, it will be there. Now, my favorite verse. Back to the letter M we go, through the glossary to and fro. The fifth festival in the month of day is a celebration of animals, you might say. And the last, the 6th festival has finally come. After this, you are done. Go to section H and you will be amazed to see humans honored on the 5 Gatha days. And that's how we run through the glossary to get the 6 gahambars. And that notice here for the spelling, I put both until we as a group decide if we're going to settle on the M or the N for gahambar. So there are many different ways that we can encourage our children and older students, high school students, to look at the glossary as a tool and something beyond just something that looks like an encyclopedia or something that's boring. So I urge you that if you have children to kind of take a look, also do the word for the day or the word for the week and engage them in what's possible. Future activities that are my wish list are to have a scavenger hunt for Shahnameh characters, to search for the 5 gays, the 5 gathas, and perhaps the 12 months of the year. I think we'll skip on the 30 days of the month. That might be a bit extended. But if you have any ideas or you wish to share in something like this, please write to us at glossary@fezana.org. We'd love to get your suggestions.
And now we'd like to open up the floor for any questions that might have come up in your mind during the presentation. Anything that you'd like to ask?
Can I?
Sure.
So yesterday, Temten and I, along with some other NAMC members, were on a call, and we are trying to standardize how we pray. And it would be very important to have the right spellings, because from the spellings, you have the right pronunciations. So it would be very useful for all our young kids to have the right spelling of all the prayers, so we pronounce it similarly, if not identical, okay?
So the question of pronunciation has come up a lot, which is why we've spent so much time explaining how pronunciation changes over time. So for instance, when I grew up in religion classes here in Toronto, we spelled Sudra, S-U-D-R-E-H. We never said Sudre in the house, but when I read that word, I knew what it was referring to. And so in our house, it'd say Sadra or Sudro, right? And so we're, I think, looking at 2 different preservation aspects here. We're looking at the glossary in terms of spellings and meanings. And if we want to look at pronunciation, that's another layer that may be something the community takes on as a project, where we'd have audio buttons beside each one of the words in the glossary that would have speakers speaking with those pronunciations if you're looking for language preservation or prayer preservation. I think
If I may add
yeah.
a quick little explanation, comment. For example, in Iran, there's pretty much one way to spell, in the Persian language, in Farsi, there's one way to spell Nowruz, as you saw on the slide earlier. So whether you're from northern Iran, southern Iran, even from village to village, Nowruz may be sounded differently. We have 86 Iranian languages and multitude of dialects and accents that are represented. So anybody who sees the written form Nowruz, they may pronounce it their own way in their own part of the country and region, but the spelling does not change. So if a child writes Nowruz in a classroom setting and misspells it, then we need to kind of find how that needs to be done and how they can be graded on it. And that's the main purpose of this. So just an example to bring the idea home. So we're talking about spelling English language for people who live in English-speaking countries. And another matter, just to give you an example, in the late 70s, after the Iranian revolt, many people, many hundreds, many thousands of Iranians started to emigrate and leave. So when they went to different countries, some went to countries that were French speaking, for example. So when they write Nowruz, the U sound is OU, and you'll see 12 different variations of it. So that's the main idea, is to try to simplify that and not leave it to individuals' discretion or taste or regional experience.
I think where it gets complicated is that the Roman alphabet, which was imposed on English, like England already had its own alphabet for English, and we don't know this. We weren't taught this. We just think the English alphabet is what we have today, but it was actually the Roman alphabet who took it from the Greeks, who took it from the Etruscans. And each time it was taken from somewhere else, it was adapted. And in England's case, it was imposed. And so it went through several reforms, even within itself, to get some of our later letters. So we're dealing with an alphabet that's not quite perfect, even for English. And now we're imposing it on our ancient languages too. And so we have to think of what's the best way to represent not only that spelling and but the pronunciation and value that, but also make sure that English readers can make sense of it.
Right. If I could just add one thing, in our project here in the global glossaries, we tried not to use diacritics. So the line over the a tilde, but we do use this in our NAMC books, which are transliterated into English, and it is necessary to know whether to say or a. But just talking about this here, we could have a similar project for Avestan Pazen terms, where, as Armaity said, one could click on a button and hear how to pronounce it. So yeah, we could have something similar if people are willing to do that for the sake of prayers and how to pronounce those terms.
I have one more comment on this. At our last talk, Johan Vivino was present, and he suggested having the transliteration of each term beside the spelling, which is also another option, and again, yet another layer to this project. So that too would kind of honor pronunciation.
We have questions.
Geeta, sorry, Geeta has her hand up first. Geeta.
Thank you so much. It was very, very informative. First of all, I would like to say hello to Dr. Ali Makki. He's my hero. He's my teacher. I'm here because of him. He probably doesn't know that. It was a day that I went to my dad's and he handed me this article from the Zoroastrian paper he was getting, and I'm like, oh, Dad, we'll just all Zoroastrians, don't worry about it. And he goes, no, Gita, you got to read this. You got to believe in Zoroastrianism. So I'm Zoroastrian. So the second thing, it was his article. And here I am. Thank you, Dr. Ali Makki. And I am
Good to
just
see you. Thank
in
you.
front of you. And it's a great honor to be here. So now on to my question. The question is word versus the message. Does it matter? Does it matter we say thought? Well, we don't know what the meaning behind a thought is. We don't even know what the thought is. We're not even aware that we're thinking. And we're not even aware we're thinking things that makes us feel so bad. Or we're thinking things that makes us feel so good. Think of God. Zoroastrians don't do that very often, because they learned to switch their thought from a bad to a good. When we were growing up, that's what my grandmother said. Don't think that. That makes you feel bad. Go do something. But beyond that, the question that I have, as I said, language is a living, and it changes. Does the message behind your word changes? And if it doesn't, if the message behind your word is not changes, the question is, how can you teach me and other students the message behind your words rather than change of the word? Thank you.
Any comments other than, do you want me to give some of my thoughts on that? Okay. Essentially, if you look at language at the end of the day, it's a tool to convey knowledge, culture, thoughts, emotions, and a word may have many different meanings in different contexts. So just as a general, I would say, concept and philosophical way of representing language, we have syntax, we have meaning, we have different components to it that present your idea to the person you're communicating with. Our project here is not addressing anything of that sort right now. What we're trying to do is to find or propose spellings that would best work in the English language. So in terms of meaning, of course, words can carry very, very, very important messages. Emotions, for example, one of our difficulties with the Gathic Avestan is that it is very condensed, but it has many different messages that come through even one word. We all know that Asha, for example, we have to put 3 different meanings in front of it to represent different aspects of it. So when we say Asha, is it truth? Is it order? Universal order? Righteousness? It's all of it. So this project is really not focusing on that sort. We're just looking for spellings. I'm sure we can have our forums to discuss those and I guess come up with meanings and how we best teach those ideas. Anybody else, any comments? Armaity?
Yeah, I think coming from like the real basic education point of view, you saw the slide that Zerkxis was talking about, and we were being facetious when we showed you alternate spellings to the global glossary, right? But there's no way you would accept somebody who's an adult spelling that way. You'd think something was wrong. And when our kids make up their own spellings, we correct them, right? Because the idea really is communication. If we all invented our own spelling, we would not be able to understand each other. Oral language has had millennia to develop. The written language, not so much. It's not natural, so it has to be explicitly taught. And so my point of view is I work with children who have difficulty acquiring language. And can you imagine, whether you have difficulty or not, if we all spelled everything differently and we were conversing about Zoroastrianism, we wouldn't know after a while what we were talking about. And so I think to honor that consistency in the system, it's important to make sure that the spellings are as uniform as we can make them.
So one poignant example in the English language is the three ways we spell there. So are we talking about location there, the contraction they are, or there, the possession or possessive meaning? But they all sound the same. But again, here's where spelling makes a huge difference.
Okay, Putli, please. Putli, you have to unmute yourself, please. Don't worry, take your time. In the meantime, Mehbad, you had a question. Putli, take your time. We'll come back to you, okay?
Yes, Arda, I have a question, and I just want to say, first of all, thank you for a very nice presentation, everyone. It's quite interesting that you all have put this words in a nice place. One of the words that I wanted to bring up from the glossary as I was looking at it, and that is the word Tandarosti. Like, I know sometimes we have spelt it Tandarosti, like Tandarosti. Sometimes I've spelt it as Tandorasti, Tandorasti. And I see it is mentioned on the site right now with small Tandorosti. So it's D-O and R-O. So it's a nice word. We always say Tandorosti, like for good health and everything. So and this is one thing which I would like to know, because I'm uploading some of our NAMC podcast. And I want to make sure that when I'm uploading those podcasts, I'm also uploading it with the correct spellings, because that's what people are going to see. So just wanted to bring on this point, like how would you determine what would be the correct spelling and pronunciation for the word Tandarosti?
So this is the crux of this project, is to propose the best representation, phonetic representation for Tandarosti. Tandarosti is a compound word, tan, body, dorosti, in right order. And in daily use, again, let me give you the Persian alphabet, the current Persian alphabet. There's one way to spell it. If, again, I'm from the city of Esfahan in Iran, I'm going to be saying Tandarosti. That's how I'm going to say it. Am I going to spell it differently in Persian? No. So in the English language, I think we need to find out how it would sound out. Just show it to an English speaker who has no exposure to any other language, and let's see what those spellings would represent. One of the best ones that I always talk about is Nowruz. Armaity and I were talking, you spell snow, S-N-O-W, but you don't say snow. You know by convention that that's snow. And when we say now, if you write that out in the English alphabet today and put R-U-Z, an English speaker would say now Ruz. So is that proper? Should we change the U to the O? And these are the questions that we're trying to answer. Again, we don't have the answer for you today. We're trying to come up with a consensus and put that together. So when you're doing, uploading stuff, when Fazana Journal's, editing its articles, or I write something somewhere, I need to know what convention to use. And if we have a tool like this, we can always reference it with a click of a button and say, okay, this is what we've decided. We haven't made a decision for anyone yet, but we're trying to bring our expertise and experiences to come up with this stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope I answered your question to some extent.
You have.
Quickly, please go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, Zoroastrian and Zarathustra, are they a different source? And both are equally correct?
Again, I think what we need to do, again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. If Armaity has an answer or thought, we can all discuss it. So are you asking, it is appropriate to say Zoroaster or Zarathustra?
Yes.
Okay. That's actually a very tough one. I think it kind of goes a little bit in a direction where, where Iranians, is it appropriate to say Farsi or Persian? So that's a debate we all have in the Persian-speaking community. We have to come up with an idea. I think people are going to have their own ways of saying it. I think for us as Zoroastrians, we're taught to say Zarathustra or Zarathustra, and that's how we should be using it. For non-Zoroastrians, in their literature, they've had Zoroaster as a Greek variant that came into the English language through Latin and Greek. So in essence, should we take on that task to try to correct that and say it's Zarathustra versus Zoroaster? That's a big debate. That's a whole nother, I think, idea. But for us, in the context of if I'm talking to a non-Zoroastrian, if I say Zarathustra and they've never heard of Zoroaster, or I mean, if they've heard of Zoroaster, they may make the connection. But if they haven't, it's a whole nother lesson plan I had to put together to explain who this is. So this question, again, it's an open question. I don't know what your thoughts are, Armaity. How would you address this?
It's interesting because Farooq Mistry brought this up last time as well. And I said, we're not here to answer that. That's like a community-based decision. But it seemed to be consensus that, we had quite a few academics where in the academic world, Zerkxis, you might be using Zoroaster and Zoroastrianism. And then amongst ourselves, like Ali said, we'd use Zarathushtri and Zarathustra. What's interesting is we didn't include Zoroaster in the glossary. So it's on my list for when we do our review of what we're going to address. Thank you.
So you're going to decide on whether it's RE or ER on that one.
Well, the other question came up a few sessions ago about whether we lean towards American English or British English. And I said British, because if you look at it morphologically and historically, it makes sense when we're looking at word study to keep with the British spelling. American spelling had its own reforms that were based on pronunciation and simplicity, but in the mix lost a bit of its historical context. So I would put my foot down there on the British.
Yeah.
By the way, once I wrote Zarathushti Brethren, and Ervad Solidastur immediately corrected and says, no, it's Zarathushti, not Zarathushti. So there are many variations. So you're right, we have to figure out what we want. That's
an adopted convention, by the way. There's no other linguistic basis for that.
Exactly. Hey, Nilofer has a question. Nilofer, please.
Hello.
Hi.
First of all, thank you, Armaity and everybody, Ali, for doing this amazing thing. I have few things like how this is going to work once you guys decide, okay, now Rose will be spelled like this or Mubarak will be spelled like this. How you guys are going to implement, like down the road, for example, 5 years, 10 years, everything has been finalized and the community has decided, okay, this is the word. Because as you see, every country have different way of teaching. Like back home in India, Pakistan, they say Armaity mat, CAT cat. In North America, they say cat. And sometimes my daughter's friends also, they read the book, they read as CAT cat. They don't read it as cat. So how you guys are going to implement for the teachers as well as for the parents to teach their kids? Like, what is your vision like? Like numbers, we used to count back home like this on the fingers, our fathers used to count. Over here, they put the numbers and cross. So I don't know whether this, like you guys are doing such a good, amazing work, hard work. I'm just afraid like it will work out, it won't work out. Like we have, unfortunately, our community is so small, but still, unfortunately, we have 3 calendars. Firstly, Kadmi and Shanshai. We have not come up with one calendar as one religion in spite of being such a small community. So how this is going to work out? I just want to understand, like, because if you have a vision, then only you work on it, right? Only 3-5 people can decide, okay, this will be the Nowruz spelling. or this will be the Mubarak, M-U-B-A-R-A-K, not M-O-B-A-R-A-K, whatever. I just want.
Absolutely valid question. I'd like to have Armaity open this as a teacher, and then I can chime in.
So in teaching kids how to read has completely morphed over ages, and there's so much science now versus how we teach. I'm not even going to get into it. But Nilofer, thank you, because you brought up some great things. And I think what we have to understand is that there's a certain bit of uncomfortableness about all of this. We've got Arda Viraf here, we've got Temten, we've got Kobad Zerolia, we've got Hoshi Udwadia, we've got priests here who've been practicing for a long time. And you are attached to how you spell things or see them on paper, as well as how you say them. And this is, even for myself on a personal level, I've stopped spelling Navroz a certain way and I spell it Nowruz now, and I'm saying it differently. Sometimes I still slip
How do you
back.
spell Nowruz?
I spell it N-O-R-O-O-Z, which is one of the accepted spellings in the glossary. But this was even a few years ago. I started switching to honor that Persian ancestry because that's really important to me as a Parsi. I know I'm limited in what I have in the Gujarati culture, in the Gujarati alphabet. And so I've always wanted to know more, Nilofer. And that's why I think we have an amazing opportunity here with where we've got Parsis and Iranians finally together again in a diaspora. Never in history were we like reunited again in this beautiful way. And we have to be careful about talking about countries, because if you listen to an Aussie accent or a Kiwi accent, they're speaking English, but it's not the same. And if you go to Texas or Newfoundland, that's also a whole other, ball game there when it comes to pronunciation, but we're still reading the same words. So what you're talking about, the implementation, is the good news is that the Fezana Journal, not the journal, but the World Congress coming up in New York, their program committee is taking on the glossary. They are making sure their program materials line up with the glossary. We're sharing this with teachers across North America, and the Fezana Journal, where this glossary even stems from, is using it. And so it's baby steps. It's about educating people the way we are right now and sharing this project that will move it forward. But as Ali mentioned earlier, we can't force you for how you spell, it's your choice. But eventually we hope that for our children, like as a legacy to future generations, that we are consistent. We owe them that. I'll stop there.
I just like
No,
to add
I
the
think you should
point.
go with that, because like New Year, nobody spells New Year in different way. They spell it N-E-W-Y-E-R all over the world, right? So our things also should be specific for the word specific, which we use on a daily basis, on a yearly basis. Other words, of course, like Zerkxis spells like X, somebody's success, somebody writes with Z. That's different, but something related to our religion, it should be one standard name used all over the world, I guess. Like Christmas and all that stuff. So it's one being used all over the world.
Mebad, Gita has her hand
Sure.
up. After that, you, and I think it's 8 minutes past the hour. So
Sure.
Gita, please go ahead.
If I can quickly just, as a trailer to what was just said about how to implement, the idea is, we need to be using reason and logic, because I, for one, when I'm spelling Nowruz, there's two ways now that I mean, Armaity does one way, I still do two, depending on who I'm talking to and who I'm communicating with. So if we use logic and reason and try to put some value to how we're doing this, again, based on English phonetics, because as Armaity said, in Texas, they have a different accent, Southern United States, Michigan, whole nother world. So when you speak to different people from different parts of the world, again, they all spell red one way, but in Texas, they may say red, or, how do they say it in Canada? Red, no. But it's a matter of having a tool that conveys the same idea consistently. So this would be if we could come up with this and different associations and organizations adopting this, that would be phenomenal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Geeta, one final question.
But thank you. I put it in the chat. I think it's just a big question. We'll just have to open it next time. Thank you. But if they want, if the teachers would like to talk about what is a good word, I would like to hear it. But I don't know if it's the subject of this meeting. Thank you.
Nepa?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the point for what Nilofer was talking and about Nowruz, and as what Armaity mentioned, like she would spell it as Nowruz. And this is what exactly Kerman Katrak, after we finished our Nowruz Jashan, he said, like, we should greet people as Nowruz Piruz, not Nowruz Mubarak. So Nowruz Piruz is more Persian, as Nowruz Mubarak makes it more Islamic in some ways and forms. So I think that's one of the, and he said it's been many years that he's tried to have people say Nowruz Piruz and not Nowruz Mubarak. But it's an interesting start, and we hope that down the road everybody says Nowruz Piruz. That's all.
What does
Thank you.
Piruz mean?
I think that
Victorious.
Kerman might have the right answer for that.
It means
Because
victorious.
we know what it means. We know what Mubarak means.
Yeah. Piruz means victorious, and that's the main meaning. But I think this is part of the movement in Iran, which actually started in the Muslim communities, reclaiming the Iranian heritage. So they started to remove Arabic terminology, but depends on how much you want to get into that. I mean, if we might have to change the din no kalmo in the Indian version because it has a lot of Arabic words in it. Where do we draw the line with that? That's another thing. So,
It's a very important point, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. But a very good topic, very nice discussion overall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kempton, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Armaity, Ali,
thank you.
and
Welcome.
Zerkxis.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I
Hey,
think
guys.
when we have the MOBIDs here, it's important to understand, I think Nilofer brought this up or somebody else, it's not just a group of 5 people who randomly came together. I want you to understand a lot of thought was put into this, and our extended review panel, as you saw some of the names there, they all are very well versed in our ancient languages, as well as the Iranian and Parsi traditions of being of the priesthood. And so we're not taking this lightly in any sense of the word. And we invite you to send us comments, send us questions, go through the glossary. What offends you or what upsets you, and what are you attached to? Let us know, because when we review, we want to take that into consideration. But I think overall, you'll find most of the terms you're going to be able to live with. So give it a try. And use this as an opportunity to share it amongst the people you know who actually are writing for publications and who are sending out information in English on our religion. This is where
And
it
your
starts.
feedback is valuable to us. We really need that from the community.
But Armaity, my thought, okay? So to me, there are 2 separate issues. One is cultural and the other is religious terms. So cultural, whether somebody says Nowruz, okay, it's okay. It's not okay, but it's okay. But if you started praying Hashem instead of Hashem Bohu, then then I don't know where we'll be in the next 200 years. So I think to me, okay, at least for myself, I'm speaking for myself, the most important focus should be that all our kids pray in the same way, or at least similar way. Otherwise, I don't know in 200 years after we are gone, how they will even say Hashem Bohu. Now, I don't know if we are saying the same way that they said in Sasanian times either. So it's a different issue. But I think if you can standardize that all around North America, from my standpoint, it would be very useful.
Yeah, and quickly, Arda, just since you brought that up, Armaity and I were speaking earlier, maybe Zerkxis was on this too. I mentioned that in Iran, in certain communities, Artoshi communities, they pronounce Hashem Bohu, Hashem Bohi. And we have a difficult time with that, but we don't do anything about it. We just, okay, that's your way of saying it, say it. And they even spell it that way sometimes, but it gets into the emotional factor here. Who taught you that? When did that come into the picture? So if we separate the cultural maybe and focus more on the other factors, might be more successful.
Thanks a million, guys. Kempton sir.
Okay, no, thank you so much. And
Wait,
thank
we're
you
not
everyone
done.
for
We're not done.
participating.
Wait. While we've got
sorry,
you
sorry, Armaity.
here.
Apologies.
Whoa. Wait a minute. While we've got you priests here, what you just brought up was really important. As a religion class teacher, my nephew just had his Navjot last year. I actually rewrote the prayers for him in English, where I highlighted all the words he already knew. I'm going to bring it up. I want you to see this because we can work together to teach our children, but we have to work together. If some of the priests who are here today are like they haven't spoken up, so I have no clue what you're thinking right now. If you're going to walk away from this and go, oh, well, that's just them and we're just going to keep doing our thing, we're not really coming together. This is an opportunity, and like we're coming to you. I'm more of the facilitator. I'm not the learned one. That's why the team is packed with so many people who know far more than I do. I don't pretend to know more. The thing is, are we going to use this expertise or are we going to throw it away because of ego? So bear with me for 1 second while I show you what I did with the kids today. 1 second. Okay, 1 sec. Now, don't get upset with me about the spelling because I copied it off the internet. I did not make up these spellings, but for Neville's Navjot, I made him a prayer book. I rewrote the prayers to highlight all the key terms that he already is familiar with, like Ahura Mazda. And then anything that had a pattern in it, I bolded as well, and I made it formatted so he could see the pattern visually. I did the same thing with all the Kushti prayers. Now, this is where it gets really cool because I color-coded each prayer. And then when you go to, oh shoot, let me open another file. And anyway, when you go to Saroshbaj and you see things that are repeated from previous prayers, I brought in the old color again so he could see he had already read that prayer before. He's already learned it. This is how we can, layer on educational knowledge and how we teach kids along with priestly knowledge and then linguistics knowledge. So there's a lot that we can do and grow for our kids. And that's where I want to see this stuff going. And I invite like I'd love to, pair up or partner with priests to be able to make that project go even further and to make sure that the spellings are, because you'll see the glossary may not have a lot of prayer spellings, and your prayer book spellings and pronunciations may be a whole other project again of, what pronunciations are we going to use for prayers?
Thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
if
know
I would,
I'm sorry, as the time is up, but I have to say this. I have an issue with that because what are we teaching our kids? What is the message? Not the words. What are we teaching? To believe in their thoughts and trying to switch their thoughts to good thoughts so they feel good at this moment, enjoy life, to make sure they wear their actions like you, good people, that everybody want to be you. That's what we're teaching. We're not teaching a prayer. And then it comes to my question that I've been asking all the Movits, what's the purpose of prayer? If you want to teach me something, I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. I'm here to teach my kids. But if you're just giving me some words of like sort of a meditation, well, could you be making some easier words that I can just meditate on it, like some other religion do? I can do that. That's not a problem. But just tell me it's a meditation and it's for you changing your thoughts to something else. I'll get it. But if you just want me to memorize something because you said so, it won't work. Sorry.
Gitajan, these are tools that are going to help us. So the message has nothing. I mean, this is the lessons that we're teaching, and the final meaning and the values are taught in our families, and these tools that we have get us there, and they are supposed to be part of what we do, convey our values.
So Gita, I think the two are not mutually exclusive. So we can do both at the same time. We are smart people. Zerkxis are very smart people, so we could do both, okay? And I personally believe that religion is very personal. You may want to follow it in one way. I may want to follow it another way. So we should respect that and just follow what your heart tells you. As far as you turn out to be a great human being, that's the most important thing according to our religion. So Kempton said it's 20 minutes
Yes,
past the
well,
hour.
okay, sure. So it's very timely that we have this discussion. As you may be aware that we have a course coming up. The course has started on basic Zoroastrian prayers refresher course. And that course is designed to refresh prayers for adults, and that also teaches the meanings of these prayers. While we are in preparation for this course, we are attempting to standardize as much as possible the punctuations, the pronunciations, etc. And certainly what Armaity showed in her last slides is fascinatingly impressive. And I'll reach out to her to see if she could lend her expertise in helping that incorporate in our course material. So I'll reach out to you, Armaity, for that. But that certainly is something that we have thought of it, we have attempted it, but now that then that was largely confined to the MOBITs. And now that we see that there is a more of a movement in academic circles, in general population as such, so there's an interest in doing that. And since we have this momentum going, let's ride with it and let's make the most of it. So thank you so much for this excellent presentation. Okay. So in closing, again, I have to thank all the participants. And if you have any other topics that you would like to discuss, please contact Ervad Zerolia. He is in charge of this segment. Or you can reach out to us on our website. And please check out our upcoming events of our lecture series as well on our website. We also offer quite a few courses. So if you are interested in that, please keep an eye for that or reach out to me or anyone on the NAMC and we will provide you that information. So as we close, Kobat Seb, do you have a word of wisdom or should we close at this time?
No, close it, no problem. If somebody wants to contact us through me or through you, we'll put them on. Okay. So we are looking
for having us.
Yep, it is a fantastic presentation.
Thank you very much. It was so good to see people that I've grown up with. Kobat uncle, Hoshi, my parents here, Putli auntie. It was really great to see people from years and years ago from all across the globe. So thank you.
And some that I've heard the names over and over the years. Now I associate the face.
Thank you so much again.
Wonderful day.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye-bye. Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.